Kelsey Grammer, best known for his roles in the hit shows Cheers and Frasier.
The audition ends, no one laughs. What are you thinking?
Could his beloved character be set for a return?
A revisit to Frasier and Frasier's world is I think, definitely going to come.
The 5-time Emmy winner shares how his TV father helped fill the void following his real father's murder.
I got an understanding of what it might be like to have had a father, and that was a great, great thing.
Grammer also opens up about his sister's murder.
Certainly a big brother, always wants to protect his sister, so losing her in that way was really damning to me.
Now happily married to his fourth wife, Grammer details his relationship struggles and what he's learned.
I think some of it had to do with always picking people that you could never satisfy.
Plus, how surfing provided what he calls his most religious experience.
If this is what dying is, if this is where heaven is, I'm good.
And he invites us on a never-before-seen tour of his property about 3 hours outside of New York City in the Catskill Mountains, where an ATV and beer await.
Cheers.
That's American.
So you went to Juilliard on scholarship, yet you still had to take 2 jobs to daily, I think, to make ends meet.
Yeah. Well, what I did was the summer before I took 2 jobs, so that I'd have enough cash to kind of get through the year, and it got me through. It got me through till the spring next year.
Well, I mean, yes, but you had to be creative.
Very
what
creative.
led you to sleeping in the park?
Well, that was because it was still warm enough I could actually sleep there for just only a few weeks, really. But I could sneak behind a certain bush and cover myself with a newspaper, and I was fine. And I showered over at Juilliard.
What made you realize that if you really wanted to be an actor, you had to give up the waiting job?
I one day walked into work where I was working at O'Neill's on 57th Street and 6th Avenue. And I suddenly thought, you know what? You're not going to be an actor as long as you're a waiter. And that's when I said to the guy, I said, I got to quit. I don't know why. It's just time. And his name was Michael, I remember. He was a nice guy. And he said, well, okay. Sounds crazy to me, but okay. And I got a job the next day. And I was an actor ever since.
Well, the rest is history. What was it about what the legendary actor said on Johnny Carson that really stuck with you?
I was 17, and I was acting at that time. I finally had become an actor. I was at least interested in it. And Johnny Carson asked Jack Benny what his key to success was. And Jack said, I always play up to the audience. I always play up to my audience. And I thought, boy, that's exactly right. Never assume an audience is dumber than you are, or that they're stupid, or they won't get it. Always play up to them. Always think that they will know. And if you trust that, they always do. And so that became sort of the rallying point for me in terms of the way I wanted to do work.
How do you get to the point where you can walk into a room performing, not say anything, not move, be staring at the audience, and for the audience to be laughing with you because they know exactly what you're thinking?
I think that comes from actually understanding that we all have an intellect that connects us, and that they'll respond to a look or a raised eyebrow or anything like that. Yeah, I mean that's one of the heady moments when you realize you're in the pocket that things are going well.
What does that feel like?
It just feels it's a little bit like heaven.
Armed with life experience and wisdom from his actor hero, Grammer's life would then change in one audition.
And the big opportunity was coming up. You audition for Cheers. The audition ends, no one laughs. What are you thinking?
Yeah, that was a strange experience because I ended up at the end of the audition in California. There's a room full of people. Not one laugh. And so I put the script down and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go out on the street, see if I can get some laughs out there. And I turned around and I left. And as I walked into the old Holiday Inn there that was at Hollywood and Vine, they said, there's some messages for you, and people have been trying to get a hold of you all this time. And I walked into my little hotel room. There was a bottle of Dom Perignon sitting on the table. I went and opened it up, and it said, "Welcome to Cheers." So,
The Frasier reboot. What's the plan for that?
a revisit to Frasier's World is I think, definitely going to come.
Without revealing too many details, what will it be about?
Oh, well, it's still his search for love, for one thing. I think that'll always go on with Frasier. But a connection with his son.
When do you think it starts?
Spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do you think
The airtime?
people can...
Probably late summer next year. I think that ideally that would be how it would work out. I think it's certainly a big brother. Always wants to protect his sister. It's what I always did for her when we were kids. So losing her in that way was really damning to me.
You had what you called your most religious experience out on a surfboard.
Yeah. The one where I sort of stepped off the planet. I thought it was an amazing thing. I looked up through the wave as it kind of sort of peaked above my head, and I caught the sun through the wave, and I saw it. And then right at that moment, I just went like I vanished into this place that was beyond the sun, and I thought I saw angels all around me, and I thought, boy, if this is what dying is, if this is where heaven is, I'm good.
Kelsey Grammer's parents got divorced when he was 2. His grandpa Gordon helped raise him, but when Kelsey was 11, Gordon unexpectedly died of cancer. Then, at age 14, Kelsey's father was murdered outside of his home in the Virgin Islands.
Why was it not till you turned the age that he passed that it really sunk in for you?
My dad was so young when he died, because I was 38. And it was the first time it hit me how young he was to have died at that age. Because to me, it was such a sort of a distant memory. I was 14, and 38 seemed like a lot then to me, at that time. But in getting to that space, I suddenly thought, what a loss for him. It's that loss of what he might have done with his own life, of possibly the relationship we could have had, but that really wasn't what it was about. It was about this poor young man that was taken before his time.
Then, when Grammer was 20, his 18-year-old sister was abducted, raped, and murdered.
You said it took kind of 20 years for you to overcome or get to a place so it wouldn't hurt you anymore. How so?
What happens when you're grieving and you don't really have any place to put it is you tend to take it out on yourself. And so I did that a bit. I drank excessively, and I got sort of wrapped up in cocaine for a while, and didn't forgive myself. Really what it came down to. And I think it's certainly a big brother always wants to protect his sister, and that's just what we're trained to do, It's what we're supposed to do. It's what I always did for her when we were kids. So losing her in that way was really damning to me. And I responded in any number of ways for a while. So I blamed myself for a long time.
And you were there when your grandma told your mom what happened?
Yeah.
How did you help your mom in getting through it?
It was hard. Helping my mom was tough. I think I'd never seen anybody move around a room that way when she heard her daughter was gone. And I think my mom was a truly brave, wonderful, persevering example. She kept it together and got through it, but always mourned the loss of her daughter, her little girl.
While tragedy partially stripped Grammer of the traditional family experience, his on-screen partners inevitably filled that void for him.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You said the greatest gift you got from Frasier was understanding what it was like to have a father and brother.
A relationship with a father.
How so?
Well, my granddad had really sort of taken the place of my father. I didn't know my dad very well. My dad died when I was 14. Spent about 3 weeks in St. Thomas with my sister, and we got to know my dad a little bit. And then saw him one more time after that, and he was dead. So I never really had a dad, and I had no real sort of understanding of how to be a dad myself either, which has come into play in my life since then. What I got with John and with David Hyde Pierce, John Mahoney playing my dad, was by virtue of the time we spent together, the 11 years we spent together, I got an understanding of what it might be like to have had a father. And that was a great, great thing. And to have had a brother, you know, that went through the things we go through, you know, in life together. And, you know, the rivalries and the love and the commitment and the loyalty. Yeah, my TV dad was just a remarkable guy, you know, a guy of sacrifice and service and the basic virtues of what you'd look for in a man, you know, in the traditional sense of a good man. You know, one that's honest, true, loyal, noble, keeps his word, stuff like that.
Why, when you were in the abuse, did you tolerate it?
That's an interesting question. My wife has a pet peeve about people and the name Graham. She says Americans say Graham. Do you find that's true? Or do they call you Graham?
I didn't even notice the difference. Say it again.
There's Graham or Graham.
May 31st, 2008, the heart attack.
Well, this is a kind of an athletic story. You know, you go pick up a big rock off the bottom of the seafloor and walk with it for a while underwater, hold your breath. So I did that about 5 or 6 times, and then we got back on the boards and paddled back up, and that's when I felt a little dizzy. I stood up, and that's when I felt the crushing pressure in my chest. I started thinking, I guess maybe that's a heart attack. When I finally got to the emergency room, they gave me what they call the clot buster. And so they did it, and then they pop you, and they bring you back. And so I was breathing on my own after the second pop. And I'll digress for a second. I'd gotten to the point in my marriage at that time where the unhappiness was so profound that I actually started to think the only way I can solve this for them is to not be here.
Really?
Yeah, and so I started to believe that the best course for my life was to not be alive, and that they'd be happier. So in that moment when I said, okay, I take it all back, is what I was basically saying to the little angels. I was saying, I didn't really mean it. You know what, I know there's something else to live for, and I want to get to that. And I guess they heard me.
So married 4 times. What do you think you learned from past relationships that's helped you as you've grown as a person?
In terms of I like to think of that married 3 times basically, was once. Because that was the same person in different bodies. I'm sure none of them would like this, but I mean, there was a pattern that I fell into where people, that somehow I thought I could help their life be better. Some of it had to do with always picking people that you could never satisfy. They were part of the step, but there were 3 women that were very similar, and the issue was the same issue, and
abusive
I like to think,
too, right?
Yeah, well, one certainly very abusive, but I like to think of the lesson being, I finally realized that wasn't what I wanted. You know, it just took me 3 times to figure it out.
Why, when you were in the abuse, did you tolerate it?
That's an interesting question.
And this is
those people who are abused. I was physically abused in my second
black
marriage.
Eyes,
Yeah, right.
glass
Black
broken
eyes
on
and
you,
glass broken,
gun fired
all kinds
at
of
you,
stuff. Yeah,
life threatened.
crazy
Yeah.
stuff. Once it happens, this is apparently some sort of this is a kind of a syndrome, I guess, or something that's identifiable with people who've been abused. You just kind of assume it's your fault, and that you accept it, and that you'll be able to fix it next time. It takes a while to say, this is not my fault, I'm not responsible for this behavior, that person's responsible for it, and I gotta get out of here. That takes a while.
Kate, who you love dearly, your current wife, 25 years your junior.
My junior, yes. 26, actually.
26. What's, I mean, just from an age perspective, the biggest difference you've noticed in
the only thing that I would notice actually is just maybe a little bit more perspective, but Kate's a wise girl. She's a knowledgeable person. She's self-aware. She's a whole human who was willing to, like, one of my favorite expressions about marriage, to lay her solitude beside my own. And so we are 2 individuals who have become a third identity. You know, we've assumed another identity together, which is us together, and that's a very cool thing. I mean, when we were together, you know, when we first got together, she said to me, there was just suddenly a moment where she thought, oh my God, I want to have kids with you. And that she said it sort of surprised her, but she said her grandmother had told her years before that, she said, you'll know the man you want to marry when you realize you want to have children with him. And I thought, oh, wow. So that was really cool. And I'd had visions of more children in my life anyway.
How many kids do you have?
We have 3. I have 7. But we're talking about a couple more.
Tell about I'm shocked that you were open about the tattoo that you got.
For Kate. Oh no. Well, that's just. She said this is something we actually have we both joke about. She just one time we were sitting there and she said, "Would you ever, put my name on your body like this, a tattoo?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" So we both said it should be out of sight, so it's somewhere near, my. It crossed our minds. It'd be funny to sort of say if I happened to be cheating, someone would say, property of, but also, or it could be, with compliments, your hostess this evening, courtesy of Kate. I thought what else to do with it, I'll just make beer of it.
Kelsey Grammer has traded in the bright lights for starry nights. Nestled in the Catskill Mountains, he took us on a tour of his scenic 500-acre property on a cold, windy day with the rain barely holding out.
How often do you come out here?
Oh, just about every day when I'm here. This is what I like to do.
For just the peace and tranquility?
Yeah, it's just having up here, man. You come up and then you turn things off, This place this is heaven to me. This is where I love to be, more than any place else. This is where when I bring my friends up, you take a good look at the view.
Why does it make you emotional?
I don't know. Just, it's, I guess one of the things that, happens when you have family, and, we all have, bad times, hard times. But there are so many good times too, and they're to be cherished and remembered and honored and memorialized in this way. But boy, you see that view there, that's just fantastic.
In the serenity is where his young daughter Faith helped provide the inspiration for his new beer label.
Well, I was up there walking with Faith and our buddy and Kate, actually, and they were talking, and Faith and I went out into the field a little bit, and he just happened to snap a picture, and that's the picture that's on the cans. It's great. It always reminds me of Faith, and that love I have with that little girl is just something else, and like a gift I've never had. She helps me hang on always to how beautiful life is, and that's the gift she's given me. So.
Before we sampled the beer, we hopped back on the ATV to continue the tour.
First, tell about where we are.
Right, well, this is the old barn property. It used to be called the Rough Farm, and this is a rough road over here that comes up to the barn. This property was adjacent to my land, my first purchase here 20 some odd years ago. It was such a beautiful building that I thought to myself, something has to be done here. And it was at that time my wife and I talked about what it should be and should become, and we thought brewery was it. I thought what else to do with it, I'll just make beer. Right. This is the barn. This is the famous old rough dairy farm barn where they used to, I don't know how many head of cattle they had in here, but probably a couple of hundred. There was a big, the machinery we took out of it when I bought the barn. Down here, we're talking about doing something with barley. That's one idea. Otherwise, it's scenery. So this is the top of the barn. The structure is just so compelling to me. It reminds me of an upside down, Viking ship or something, or one of the great barges, or Noah's Ark, or whatever.
And you're thinking you'll do what with this?
I was always thinking of it being sort of an entertainment space.
Head to the
Fabco Odyssey. Okay, now go ahead. There we go. We're ducking in out of the rain. This would be the sort of beginning of a great romance. So this is the Fabco Faith American Brewing Company Odyssey, which is what I originally named it. I'm not sure we're ever going to really call it that, but.
So when you first had the idea for the brewery 4 years ago to now, the notable points in that process for you are what?
Well, the first notable one was actually having a beer that tasted good.
Should we sample?
Yeah. See if I can get my pouring hand in gear here.
It's a good pour for sure.
Get myself one.
Cheers.
Faith American.
It's really good.